Oh my gosh, it's here! It's finally here! Download assembly guide here. Ooh. In this video, I'm going to guide you through how to set up the arcade cabinet, the Bartop model from the LEP1 Customs Etsy store. And the kit I assembled, and it's the 32-inch version. So keep that in mind. This is the 32-inch wide cabinet. This is a tutorial guide video all about how to assemble and put it together. Let's go. All right, looks like the first step, which I didn't get on camera because my camera messed up, but first step is to lay the pieces like this, match up with the numbers that are matching on here. I kept getting number 3 and 5 mixed up. This is 5, and this is 3. I kept getting them mixed up because they look so similar. I kind of wish they would use like a Sharpie on these so that you could better distinguish them and see, okay, this is 5 and this is 3 and this is 4. So I just gotta use hot glue on these, or not hot glue, wood glue. Why am I saying hot glue? It's wood glue. I had to use wood glue on these and let it sit overnight for 24 hours. All right, after gluing the pieces on, I just basically got a bunch of heavy books, all the books I could find in my house that were heavy, and like this giant graphic novel of bone and textbooks, and this is just printer paper that's not open yet. So I had the idea of, like, since I can get these out of the way of the living room, I can just put this on top as well to further enforce it. So that way there's a lot of weight on the wood so that it will press into it and dry nicely and firmly onto the panels like it's supposed to. And there's Wi-Fi. I started reading the instructions about how to start this off, and I tried looking at that one dude's video about how he put it together, and he goes so fast with his video. It's like, oh my gosh, I gotta like dial it back.
The rest of the setup process was pretty easy. Probably the easiest part of the whole thing was actually screwing the pieces together, because everything is lined up perfectly, all the pieces are cut perfectly, all the holes are drilled perfectly, to where it's pretty hard to screw it up.
So many times. First thing you should do is you should have this be centered like this. And I just want to make sure I'm getting all this on good angles, good recording, because I know someone's going to buy this at some point and they're going to be like, well, how do I put this together? What's the correct way? Because the instructions are not like super detailed. They expect you to just read it and be like, okay, let me figure this out. And then you just figure it out. And to be fair, it's not too hard to figure it out considering the way these are constructed. But when I first was looking at this thing, I was like, wait a minute. How come the holes don't go all the way through the wood? And I realized, oh, it's so that they can fit snugly in there and not be too loose in the wood. I kind of didn't realize that at first, and so now this is a little bit too loose right here, but that's okay because it's a small piece of wood anyway. I don't think this is going to be that big of a deal if it's a little loose, hopefully anyway. So yeah, anyway, in order to line up this thing properly, I had to grab the back piece and put them together in a way that makes sense, to where they both like make an L shape and line up. So you see, we have the two pieces lined up. And at first, I was having a problem where they weren't lining up at first, and it's because I drilled this in the wrong way at first. This is the bottom piece. This is the bottom, that's the front, this is the back. So you do the bottom second. Do the front first, then the bottom, then the back. But before you do the bottom, you gotta line up the back so that you know that you're making sure that the bottom panel is centered correctly or lined up correctly, or else it won't line up well with the back at all. and that'll be proper. So that's what I'm learning. That's what I've learned so far from doing this. That don't worry about the fact that the holes don't go all the way through. That's number one. Just drill through, and then like what I had to do in order to get it through, I had to just drill as hard as I could. I had to really hold the wood firmly in place and drill as hard as I could into there until I got it in. And it's a pain in the butt, but you gotta just drill it through apparently. Just now realizing that in his video, he's assembling the speaker board part wrong. You're supposed to assemble it, from what I can tell, supposed to assemble it with this little rigid part. This needs to face out like this, face upwards. Okay, so it looks like I put it in where like the little notch is on the outside from right here. So I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the way you do it, but that's the way I assembled it. And I'm not really keeping my speakers in there anyway, so I don't think it's a really big deal about like where this little notch piece is coming out of. Okay, so looks like I ended up doing it right here where the notch is facing outwards on that part, and then the next piece, the next board, the notch is facing upwards. So that's the way you need to assemble that one, is having that one with the notch facing upwards on the right side. Okay, it looks like it's gonna slot in just fine. At first I thought maybe like this would be a problem, where there'd be a hole, but I think this is like gonna line up to where this covers up the hole, and same for this part too. So we're good. Only problem this is gonna be is that number one, trying to figure out how the TV is gonna mount in here with this part that mounts the TV in. And then number two is the buttons. I gotta get the buttons all figured out and in there before I can even attach the button part. Oh, and don't worry guys, we're gonna go over how to set up the control panel with the buttons, how everything works with the PCB, and how to hook up all the wires and everything. We'll go over that very soon. That's at the very end of this building process, so don't worry, I will explain that very soon. Just hold off until the very end. I just want to go over everything else. Okay, so don't be like me and assemble. If you're gonna paint it, which I mean, why wouldn't you want to paint it? Don't start assembling it right away, I guess, because it was actually difficult for me to get this outside. Or I guess you could assemble it outside and then paint it. But it was difficult for me to move this thing. I'd be very careful not to upset or mess up the pieces. So they were a bit wobbly, but they held their place and okay. And I at least got this outside so that I could paint it. I'll just keep assembling it outside for now, so that I'm just waiting for the paint to dry. I'm using paint and primer satin Oasis blue. If you want to get that color, looks really nice. I'm waiting for these buttons to dry. I'm gonna wait for the control panel to dry so that I can put the buttons in, and then once I get the buttons in there and all wired together, then I can finally start assembling the rest of it. There we go, people. Okay. It's a big arcade box, my boys. It's a big arcade box. Okay, after several minutes of messing around with getting the joysticks aligned properly in here, using mounting tape. Okay, so in the long run, electrical tape, any kind of tape for the joysticks is not a good idea. Please use hot glue. If you can't get a harness for your joystick, use hot glue and it'll stick in there really nicely. That's what I ended up having to do. However, for the PCBs that hook up to the joystick and the control pad, the little membrane part, that can be put in with mounting tape. That's fine. It's not a big deal. It's just a little circuit board. You can just put that in there with mounting tape, and it's fine, or electrical tape, and just stick it in there. Just a little piece mounting tape, not a big piece. Just a little piece mounting tape on the back, and then just stick it in there, and it's fine. Okay, so because I wasn't able to wood glue this in properly, I couldn't figure it out. I tried using mounting tape on here, but that's not gonna completely stick as well. So, and I also needed something down here to prop up the TV to keep it in line and everything, keep it where it's supposed to be. And so I just got this long piece of wood. It's like a wooden sort of piece of art poster thing that's got Ninja Turtles on it. It's just a wooden long piece of wood that I put underneath here, and then I put like a book, a nice heavy book underneath here that I'm not reading. It's just like a data textbook. And then I put like this piece of cardboard underneath here. And so we just got this part here that further enforces the TV being held in place. And then this is just kept right here in place right here, and just kind of sits in here. Yeah, if you look, there's like a little piece of tape. It's like stuck right here. It's supposed to keep it in place. But yeah, it's pretty finicky getting this TV to stay aligned and up and like upraised and everything. But once you get everything situated the way you need to, yeah, you could just use like command strips or something really sticky. Nothing, no tape, maybe like mounting tape, but like command strips, that would really help. I think that would help with keeping this part stuck in there. Just anything you can use to work around the fact that, yeah, with the wood glue, I could have used wood glue, but I just couldn't get it in there as well as I could, and it just ended up working out. It worked out just fine. It ended up working out just fine, and I'm happy with it. You can't see anything because the TV covers up everything, so it doesn't matter how like much junk you have to put in there to hack it together to keep it up. It's just like, as long as the TV is up and it looks nice, it doesn't really matter what's behind it exactly and what's keeping it up, as long as it's, you know, aligned and good. So I recommend taking the stand off of the TV. That will make it a whole lot better to lay flush with the arcade machine. Just have it lay down, and don't use the stand. I had to basically just turn it over upside down and take the screws out. That's all you gotta do to get rid of the stand, and it works a whole lot better. I was trying right here to see if I could get the stand to sit with it, and I was like, oh, it's not so bad, but no, it's just not a good viewing angle. It's just not gonna work if you have the stand out. So have it lay flush with the cabinet, and it'll work great. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, the TV I'm using is an RCA branded TV. It's LED, 32-inch LCD HD TV, and I bought it at a thrift store for about $26. So I just recommend going to a thrift store, you know, like Red Racks or City Thrift should have something like that, or really just anywhere you can find a decent cheap TV that can use HDMI. It doesn't have to be 32-inch. It can be anywhere between 27 inches to 32 inches wide. Okay, so this is the first PCB I bought that I got for the first arcade controller. So it essentially outputs as an Xbox One controller or Xbox 360, but you have to use a special button combination if you want it to output as Xbox 360, and I didn't know that at first. So when I plugged two of these into my PC, it wouldn't let me use the second one, because apparently you can't use two Xbox One controllers at the same time on a PC. It'll just use one, and it won't read the other one, which is really freaking weird. But anyways, so what you want to do is you want to buy one of these, or just buy two of the universal kind. Just go and buy one of these and then the universal kind, or if you want to just stick with Switch and PC, just get 2 universal kind of PCBs and don't even bother with the Xbox One. I only got the Xbox One because I'm usually familiar with Xbox working just fine on the computer. You know, that's what you usually get when you get a really good controller for your PC, is an Xbox controller. So I just figured, oh, that works great. This is the one I heard about. But no, apparently the universal one is a lot more compatible with everything. So just get that, and don't worry about getting the Xbox One unless you really want to use this one on your Xbox One or Xbox 360 or something, and you're plugging in that into your arcade machine. So I would just go with getting the universal one twice. Get the universal fighting board twice, and then you get the fight cable. This fighting cable will make wiring it up with all your joysticks and buttons very easy and hassle-free. Okay, so I was sitting here like racking my brain, like how the heck do I use this thing with the Brook thing? Because whenever I look up stuff about this PCB, it's not, people aren't talking about this cable that you buy like with it separately technically, but you buy with it to make it easier on you apparently, because apparently what most people are doing is they're like getting like wires and like stringing them in here for the buttons and stuff. It's like, well, no, this makes it a whole lot easier. You just plug this in, and I'm like, wait, which one goes where? There's no instructions or anything. And then I went back on my friend pointed out on the Amazon website, on the Amazon post product thing, is that, oh, it shows you a diagram. Okay, so you want to go onto the Amazon webpage and scroll down all the way until you get to this part right here. It shows you a diagram of where all the buttons are. Like the wires come out, and then it tells you what buttons are doing what with which wire. So right here we have L2 or left trigger right here with this little circle, and then we have R2 and R trigger, and this all these different ones like X, A, B. So this says XA, but actually this is A. This is A, B, X, and then Y / triangle. This is X/square. So this is the actual like X on like an Xbox, and this is the actual Y, and this is the actual A. So I guess this X right here for A is actually the cross symbol, like a PlayStation. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward if you just know where this diagram is, and you're like, okay, so this wire goes here from this one, and then I just gotta like put it where I want it to go on the board. This orange one is the A button or cross on PlayStation, and then this is a left trigger, and then these are different buttons right here, and then you got all these blacks are ground. You gotta plug the ground in there. Oh yeah, that's very important. The second part of the wire goes with the ground, so it doesn't matter which wire goes into which little metal slot on the button. Just put either one on each part. Just put the ground on the second one, I guess, and then just put the button one on the first one. And that is how you set up each button. Is you need to have one wire for the button that's actually going to receive the signal, and then you need to have the ground because the ground powers it. The ground is what grounds the signal or the electronics or whatever. I don't really know how. I don't really know how all that works with circuitry, but I know that you need to have the ground and then the actual functioning signal part. So that's what you're supposed to do. And then this joystick part just goes with this little plug, which is pretty handy. You just plug the joystick in. There's your left, right, down, and that's at the very top. That goes at the very top here of this thing. So it's there. It's on the diagram, but it's like really like just you can miss it really easily because I did. Oh yeah, and if you want to get some really easy and cheap joysticks and arcade buttons, just go on to AliExpress, go to this store, YingLucky, and get their Sanwa imitation brand. Those are the ones that I got off of AliExpress, and they're pretty cheap. They take a while to get here because they're from China, but they are totally worth it, and they worked great for this arcade cabinet. And I just figured I'd recommend those in case anyone was wondering. Or you could just get some from Amazon. It's really up to you. I just thought I would mention AliExpress because that is usually the cheapest of the cheap when it comes to parts like that. So you're probably wondering how I got the sign up there and everything. Well, it's just some poster board hot glued onto where the sign would go. And then for the sign, essentially, I had that printed off on poster board from FedEx, and then I hot glued that on top of the poster board that I already had on there. And then I also went and got some plexiglass to put over the top of the sign so that it would stay on there well and it would look good. Because before, I didn't have any plexiglass on there and it was fine, but my cats just love to jump on top of that arcade machine and love to jump up to the bookcase and sit up there because they think that's great and they just love climbing on things. And I'm just like, well, I can't really stop them from trying to do that, so I'm just gonna put some plexiglass over it so the sign stays nice and pretty and doesn't get damaged at all. And I recommend you do the same. Just get some command strips to hold the plexiglass in place. And I actually had to use Gorilla Tape. Gorilla Tape is what is also holding it in place. So get some black Gorilla Tape. That blends in really well and you barely notice it. And it looks great. And it holds the plexiglass and the sign just fine. Just make sure it's dark black so it doesn't stand out too much. Okay, so that's it for this video. I hope you guys all enjoyed it, and I hope it really helped you out with building your arcade machine and putting it all together. And I hope that it guides you through the process and that you got something really good out of it. Part 2 of this video, I'm going to show off how I got my Steam Deck working with it, and I'm going to go over like what speakers I'm using, and mainly the launcher, the game launcher launch box. That's what I'm mainly going to go over and show off, and just show off some. And yeah, I'm also going to list off my top like 15 arcade classics I like to play on this thing, show those off, my recommendations of where to start with playing which games, like from Steam or retro consoles, or arcade in general. Just anything that you want to play on this thing, I'm going to list off and give you recommendations for it. So stay tuned for part 2, check it out, and it'll be linked below or up here on the right corner of the thing. Somewhere I'll put it. Just look in the description, you'll find it. Anyways, this is Shock from the Shock Block, and I'll see you guys next time. Adios, goodbye, peace!